I am someone who can confidently say that I have never had the privilege of being average. And as someone who has firsthand experience of what it is like to live a life of never having that privilege, I can tell you that there are certain differences between someone who has the privilege and someone who does not. So let's start with the first difference. Someone who has never had the privilege of being average is likely a better communicator than someone who has had that privilege. Because the way you communicate, no matter the medium, whether it is verbal communication, written communication, or even the way that you physically present yourself in terms of the way you dress and your body language, you are always conscious of how you are coming across to others. And this is because you know that curating a positive perception starts with the way you engage and socialize with other people. Because when you don't have the privilege of being average, it means you have a higher standard to live up to compared to others for the same opportunities. And as a result, one of the biggest areas that you have likely invested in yourself to even the playing field is through being able to articulate clearly, to speak confidently, to dress well, and to regulate your emotions to have greater control over your body language. This does not mean that you are dimming your light or that you are walking on eggshells, but rather you are someone who has ultimately assessed how to strategically present yourself in the world so that others are more likely to respect you, associate with you, and therefore help you by giving you the opportunities that you know you already deserve. The second difference is that someone who has never had the privilege of being average is likely someone who produces excellence as a regular standard compared to others. Because when you are judged at a higher threshold, that requires you to elevate to that standard. And as a result of that elevation, what eventually ends up happening is that excellence becomes your standard level of performance, but without the pain of having to perform at that level. And so, what this means is that while others may struggle to keep up down the line, you continue performing at a steady state of excellence that actually gives you energy back into your life to reinvest in the most important areas. Because while others may have had it easy in the beginning, you will find the same people not being able to meet the demands of what is required of them as time goes on. And this is the ultimate silver lining of having to work twice as hard at the beginning. The third difference is that someone who has never had the privilege of being average is likely to have better discernment when it comes to accepting certain people into their lives, especially when it comes to friends and potential partners. And this is because you realize that potentially harmful people can jeopardize what you have worked so hard to build for yourself. And because you have worked so hard to build a life that you are really proud of, you realize that there is a lot of created value that you could potentially lose if you were to let in the wrong people. And as a result, your discernment serves as a sharp filter to quickly determine who you will continue engaging with and who you will keep at a distance. The fourth difference is that someone who has never had the privilege of being average is more likely to act with a sense of urgency because they realize that they can gain the first mover advantage in order to do more with their time and energy. Because taking action quickly does not mean that you are acting out of scarcity or because you're rushing the process, but rather you realize that the fastest way to learn what is going to work and what is not going to work is to make a decision to take the best action you can at that point in time. Because the next steps that you're going to take after depend on the initial action you decided to take. And ultimately, this urgency allows you to make as many pivots as you need to in a shorter period of time in order to get to where you actually want to be, and perhaps even in a shorter timeline as well. And the fifth difference is that someone who has never had the privilege of being average has both substance and form. And as a result, they are more likely to center themselves and operate from their self worth and value because you actually had to build the advantages to subsequently get ahead. And as a result, you become much more aware of what you're capable of achieving, despite the advantages you didn't have at the beginning. And consistently self reflecting will reveal to you just how powerful you actually are, because ultimately you're living an above average life that you created for yourself and that required you to believe in yourself and to affirm who you are and what you're about in this world. Ultimately, we all have different privileges in life, and it is about being the type of person to leverage the advantages you already have while building new ones to get you even further ahead.